All right, so this is a speaker meeting. Our speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope for approximately 45 minutes. I'm right on time. Greg, I'm doing good. We ask out of respect for our speaker to please remain seated until he has finished. It is my pleasure to introduce Larry.
Hi everybody, my name's Larry and I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank this meeting for having me come out here and be with you guys. And I want to wish everybody a happy birthday, and I want to welcome the new people. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor tells me that I'm living proof that a man can stay sober for a little over 39 years and not amount to a damn thing. So I don't know where you think you're going if you're new. But the highest I've ever gotten here is sober, basic human being, active member of my own home group. You know, that's about as high as I need to get here. I've sponsored a couple guys who have gotten higher than that, and I can't find them, you know. Maybe they're in Bakersfield, I don't know, man, but they usually show up around birthday time or something like that, right? But I'm glad to be with you, and if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm happy that I'm sober. Now, those two words don't belong in the same sentence with a guy like me. It helps to know what the problem is, and I had no idea what the problem was. I didn't discover I was an alcoholic, on a bar stool and then come to AA or anything. I had no idea what alcoholism was till I sat eyeball to eyeball with you folks. And I identified myself into this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. What a blessing it's been to know what the answer is. All my life, I've been wandering around trying to figure out what my problem is. People were asking me the same thing I was asking me. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? What's going on with you? You know, there was something missing, you know. And I found out what that was. I was totally consumed in self. My parents weren't my fault. Where I was born wasn't my fault. My life was my fault. Wasn't the alcohol or anything. My life is my fault. Took full responsibility to that. And I found peace with you folks in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know that just tickles the snot right out of you guys. But I want to tell you something. It helps to know what the problem is, you know. And I was born in Detroit, and I come out to California when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I had great parents. My mom and dad were beautiful people. They both were brought up in the ghetto of Detroit, and they were hard-working people. My mom was a little Scandinavian lady. They had some problems with me and with themselves, so they separated and they put me in an orphanage for a while, you know, and then they got together and gave it a countless vain attempt and moved to California and stuff. But my mom was a beautiful little lady. She was a little Scandinavian lady, you know, and my mom loved diet pills. So she was always running around the house, sorting out nuts and bolts all day, you know, or raking the neighbor's yard around 3 in the morning, or, you know, just a busy lady, you know. And, I didn't have no idea that I laid eyes on my first tweaker, you know. But by golly, there she was, you know, and just eating that speed all day and making Afghans, you know. Everything in the house had fresh Afghans on it, right? Chairs had Afghans, the couches had Afghans. My dad had any golf clubs, she had little poodles she knit and stuck them over there, you know. If there was any animals, they had a fresh vest on, you know. And no matter what time you got up, she was up doing something, you know. Scrubbing the tile with your toothbrush or something like that, you know. And as some of you new folks know, that when you eat a lot of speed, you have a lot of hobbies, am I right? Yes. And you like to do them all at once, right? You're painting, you're edging, you're tuning your car up, you know, you're just busy, you know. And her favorite hobby was to eat that speed and make these huge jigsaw puzzles, you know. Not the little 2,000 piecers or something like that, you know. The 1,000,000 piecers, you know, of the Mojave Desert, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, she would get excited about that. You know, oh my God, it's going to be a beige night tonight, honey. You know, and she'd run off to the old drugstore, you know, and get her a carton of Raleigh cigarettes. She smoked these Raleigh cigarettes. They were as bad as Oscar's cigar. You know, just terrible thing, man. And she would smoke these cigarettes, and she would buy these because on each pack of cigarette on the back there was a coupon. And if you saved the coupons, you could buy stuff. And she would save the coupons and buy more yarn. It was a hideous cycle she was caught up in, you know. And she'd get all excited and buy her a carton of Raleighs and get her prescription filled and get her little blonde peroxide and run home and start eating that speed and put her one and only moo-moo on she had for 50 years, you know. Squeeze herself in the old breakfast nook, you know, and eat that speed and watch TV and make that puzzle, by golly. And if she found a piece of puzzle that didn't work, well, she had a big pair of toenail clippers, and she'd just snip that son of a bitch down and wedge it right in there, you know. It was amazing. It was a heck of a work ethic, that one that I dodged like the plague, you know what I mean? But what a beautiful lady she was, man. I love my mom dearly, you know. And my dad was a happy drunk. My dad was a happy singing the blues and Nat King Cole, Bobby Darin drunk. He was a World War II vet. And the old man, he used to get drunk and sneak into his own home. You know, he was a window climbing alkie, which I believe is a lost art in Alcoholics Anonymous. That old boy standing on that gas meter, pounding on that window all night, hoping that it's his own home, getting ready to make that magic dive over that toilet, you know what I mean, or the sink or something. And the old man was a refinery worker. And so they were always on shift work, and he never knew when he was going to be, you know, sneaking through that window again, you know what I mean? He loved to sneak in there. And one night he snuck in there, and that big old refinery boot came down on my chest, you know, and I grabbed that boot and I said, Jesus, Dad, you know, why don't you have Mom make you a set of keys, you know? For God's sake, she's up anyway, you know what I mean? I can hear the Hoover going now, you know. She could probably make it with her teeth. You're grinding so much, you know. And, oh, man, my dad had my number. I tell you, you know, and my sponsor reminded me of my dad. He was just like him, you know. My dad used to tell me, you don't know how good you got it. Back when I was your age, we really had it tough. Okay, you know what I mean? I believe you. And I did believe him. He had a heck of a life, man. Grew up in that ghetto of Detroit and seen a lot of things. His dream was to go into the Navy, so he went into the Navy. World War II, his ship got sunk, lost all of his high school buddies. And his dream was to come out of there and marry my mom and live a life that they used to read about. Like you do when you're new. How you dream about that life that eludes you. If I could just get that car and that job and that big front yard and that goofy dog that pees on my foot and, you know, get all these normal things, you know. They had a dream. You know, and he married her, you know, and they lived that dream, you know, and I never want to forget that because me and my old man at around the age of 11, I would make a right turn, and broke his heart because I didn't know till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and hanging around some of you guys. And listen to the men in the meetings and how they would brag about their sons, how they were going to college and you know, Oscar's going in the Army, and they would brag about their sons. And I remember making amends to my father and my uncle, his brother, and my dad never had that chance. They would ask where I was, and he said, I don't know. I haven't heard from him for a while, and that was it. You know what I mean? I never want to forget. My mom looked like a little actress, like Kim Novak. Beautiful little lady. Outgoing. People liked her. She had a great personality, you know what I mean? And easygoing and always had a smile, and people just loved her. And I never want to forget what I did to that lady. I never want to forget that after I got started, that I would whittle that young lady when I was 30 years old and I finally got to Alcoholics Anonymous to a neurotic mess, where that beautiful, outgoing, little personable lady was frozen in front of a kitchen window, smoking all day and night, looking out that window, wondering if that siren that went by had my son in the back seat. That obituary that I read, was that his name back there? That image that I see walking the streets at night, is that Larry? And she was glued to that kitchen window and whittled her down to a neurotic mess. And I would have that delusion that my drinking ain't bothering anybody. You see, I never want to forget what it was like to be 18 years old and be put away for a small period of time. And when you come out, you get out on a Monday, and the bus drops you off, and you're supposed to run to the courthouse and to the probation department. And so they let me out, and I don't run there. No, I run into the neighborhood. I run into the Lorana over there in Gardena, and I'm over there. And I'm running there, and I don't go in Monday, and I come out Thursday. And I don't show up at house. I don't show up at the courthouse or anywhere. You know where I show up? I show up at my mom's place of business. Yeah, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. I've got my street mud on, and my filth, and my disgust, and my dirt, and what Wino Joe used to call the habiliments of despair. And there I stood at 8 o'clock in the morning with my bare feet and my blood and my mud and my filth. And I'm 40 yards away from my mom's place of business. She's working in a dry cleaners, and she's cleaning people's houses on the weekend. And I make fun of her, and I'm ashamed of her. But I'm not too ashamed to show up unannounced that little Thursday morning. And the rain's coming down, and I'm hiding behind this parked car. Got my eye on that window in there, waiting for that last customer to come out of there so I could make my move on my mom. And one more time, man, I'm starting to walk through that rain with my bare feet and my bloody mess and my filth. And I open up that glass door, that dry cleaners, and my mom turns around and makes that oh so familiar sound. Oh my God, Larry, where have you been? She grabs her wallet and she peels out $1 and $2, and I run right by her and I grab that money and I run into Wilmington where I'm going to die. Now the things that brings it home to me tonight with you folks here, you new guys, you take this same man, new in Alcoholics Anonymous, with my so-called desperation, and I need to ask you something if you're new. How come when my life depends on it, if you were to put the secretary of this meeting that same distance as me and my mom in that parking lot, how come when my life depends on it, I can't walk that 40 yards and ask that man for a job in a meeting that's going to save my life, and make no mistake it will. But I can walk that 40 yards and use my mom and folks like her time and time and time again. And I'm here to share with you, if you're new, that it's been my experience, and that's all I have is my experience, that if my alcoholism doesn't kill me, my selfishness and my self-centeredness will, make no mistake about that. Which is why it's necessary for a man with over 39 years to have a home group and a string of meetings all week long, and a commitment to see one of the men that I sponsor every year, to come out and be with them and to see some of the guys that he sponsors. And that's why it's necessary for me to have those. And it's for one reason and one reason only. And it's not so I could run off to Prescott and tell you about it. Well, maybe a little, but you know. It's for one reason and one reason only. I will never get so sober that I can't get drunk again. But I can get so drunk that I can't make it back. And I never want to forget what I used to be like. I never want to forget what happened to me and what I'm like today. I never want to forget that from the time I was 13 till the time I was 30, I sat in clinics and offices and jails and hospitals with well-meaning people, well-educated people, people that I loved, people of the cloth, people who had all the evidence in the world, who had books and tapes trying to talk me into being an alcoholic. Every one of them trying to have enough information to talk me into being an alcoholic. And thank God they couldn't do that. Because they would have robbed me of the most divining moment of my life. When that day came, when I knew enough about alcoholism because of you people that I would be able to concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. This was the first step in recovery. Thank God they didn't rob me of that opportunity. That opportunity has nothing to do with quitting. It has to do with a man or woman doing the hardest thing an alcoholic has to do in his life. Admit complete defeat. We're talking about surrender. We're not talking about quitting. Every time I quit, I started up again. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous after 10 years of sliding in and out to quit one more time. I came back this last time because I knew I would start up again. My whole position on this thing shifted. I don't have a disease. I don't have a malady. I don't have a lethal obsession. It has me. I am in the grips of a progressive illness. You understand that? I'm in the grips of a progressive illness. It has me. I don't have it. And what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me, if you're new, is loosen up that grip just enough to what? To surrender to this way of life and tell somebody what's happened to me. This gift isn't mine to keep. This isn't mine to hoard and take home, and when my ass falls off, run down to the old club. You know what I mean? This gift was given to me for one reason and one reason only. To tell you what I used to be like. Not what you used to be like, but what I used to be like. And you find yourself identifying yourself into the most comfortable place you've ever been. What does most new people say when you ask them, how you doing? I'm living the dream. Well, that's your problem. This has nothing to do with dreamland. This isn't a delusion, man. You know? And when you're a phony like me, all my life I was a man of images. I didn't know what I was supposed to be. I didn't know if I was supposed to be a little baseball player, a little hoodlum, a little gangster. What was I supposed to be? Everything had a little outfit on, you know what I mean? And by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, after about 2 weeks after this last time, I found myself talking a different vocabulary. The vocabulary here is, I've never heard words like this. Phenomena, anonymity and all that. We're not walking around talking about stuff like that, And I got scared to death because I found myself talking a different language and hanging around people who were living differently and stuff. And I thought I was lying to myself again. I thought I was putting on another image. That this new code of Alcoholics Anonymous was another costume. And it wasn't. It was what I was supposed to grow into and fill out. Amazing thing called Alcoholics Anonymous if you're new. All I can tell you is that at the age of 11 years old, I took a right turn. My dad wanted nothing but the best for me, like any father would. But I took a right turn at 11 years old. I was always running away from home, and I felt like a guest in that old home, and there was a lot of stuff going on in that home. But that didn't make me an alcoholic. It just made me afraid, and I didn't trust the people that were my parents. And it's really confusing when people are telling you what to do and beating you into it, but they're not doing it themselves. It makes you a little touchy, you know what I mean? And then you come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and you get a sponsor. You get a couple buddies. And they not only give you suggestions what to do, you can watch them do it on a daily basis. We lead by example. What you are speaks so loud I can't hear a word you say. If you can learn to behave in these meetings and have some kind of respect for the folks next to you and understand that even though you want to be on your phone and talk to your neighbors, there may be somebody whose life depends on this meeting. And you taught me to start having respect for the thing that's saving my life and the people in it. And one of these days, you'll find yourself taking that attitude to work, to home. And this thing isn't just something you do for an hour and a half. It becomes a way of life. It is a way of life. It's not something you work at. It's something that you begin to live. And I tell you, it's the most amazing journey you'll ever be on, man, I tell you. And if you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous, be prepared to be divinely inconvenienced for the rest of your damn life, man. It has nothing to do with your comfort, man. You do the uncomfortable to get comfortable, you know. And it's the longest thing I've ever done against my will my entire life, you know, which is why it works so well, you know. Nothing to do with convenience. But at the age of 11 years old, I've been running in and out of the house and sneaking out and running away from home. At 11 years old, there was 4 of us in a garage, and my buddy started passing around a bottle of Four Rose whiskey. And man, I tell you, I've always known I was a nobody. You begin to hear it and behave like it, you own it. I knew I was a nobody. I'm a loser. I'm a hostile loser. And I had this thing that my dad used to wake up and let's go get him, man. He couldn't wait to start the day, man. And you know, he was a hard-working guy, man. And he had this belt of courage that when things got tough, he would reach down into that little Detroit God and just plow his way through it. I am not like that. You know, when I wake up, I think about my nap is what I do. You know, there's nothing in me that says, let's go get him, Larry, you know what I mean? And everything is after 2:30, you know what I mean? And, they hated that sloth. My wife hates it too, you know. She's getting used to it, you know. But at the age of 11, man, there was 4 of us in that garage, and I took a shot of that Four Rose whiskey, and I tell you what, man, I never threw up so much my entire life. I never laughed so hard my entire life. That evening, the magic of all magic happened to me. At 11 years old, I kissed my first Latin woman. Yeah, it was my aunt, you know what I mean? 46-year-old, I went after my Auntie Della, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Made my uncle a little edgy, you know what I mean? I counted it, you know. And man, we had the time of our life, you know. And man, I remember sneaking home and sneaking into that old bedroom of mine, you know, and laying down on that bed, and then it took off like a flying saucer. It spun around. I felt like I had to hang on to it, man, you know. Barfing all over the place and stuff, you know. And I woke up that next morning and I thought, oh man, the old man practically took your head off when he caught you smoking. He's going to tear you apart right down the middle when he finds out, you know, when he sees you this morning. And man, I opened up that door in the hallway and I was nowhere around, you know what I mean? And I thought, Jesus, I got to go to the, you know, that little room where he has a bar. My dad had a bar. You guys will love this. He made himself a bar, and it fit one guy, right? The Alki bar, man. That's the Alki bar, man, you know. Is that great? So I said, God, you know, I was going to take the hit off some of his stuff he has in there, you know, and I went to go in there, and man, he had a padlock that big on it, man. He knew who was down the hall, you know what I mean? And from that day on, I was to fend for myself, and I took a right turn. And I didn't head out to Skid Row the next day and come to AA or nothing like that, like some of you guys. But I did mark that spot. And I become preoccupied with doing it again. Somehow, some way, I got to do that again. Because I tell you what that drunk did to this nobody. It made this nobody feel like somebody for 3 or 4 hours. And when you're a nobody, man, that's top of the world. I would rather be a part-time somebody than an all-time nobody. Man, I'm going to repeat this stuff again. I've got the thing that evens out the playing field, man. You know, I'm one of those losers who have no confidence. You know, everybody seems to be doing well. I couldn't talk to people. You know, I was an ugly, homely kid, you know what I mean? And I would watch you guys on the playground talking to each other for over 10 minutes. Just go, how did they do that? You know, what the hell are they talking about for that long, you know? And after a while, you're sure it's you, you know? Look at that guy staring at us, you know what I mean? What the hell's wrong with him, you know what I mean? And but I knew my life was taking a turn when at the age of 15, 16, my best friend Luis Sanchez was shot and stuffed in a trash can. I knew my life was taking a little turn there, you know? But at the age of 11, I didn't head out to Skid Row, but the older I got, the more I leaned on it, and it was easy to find. And by the time I was a freshman in high school, kids are going to their locker rooms to get their books and their notebooks and stuff, and I'm going to my locker room to get a little shot of Thunderbird wine, maybe some barbiturates or something like that. I started dating this little Mexican girl, and she had some brothers, and they liked cars, and I love cars. To this day, I love cars. You know, I didn't have these Dodge trucks like you guys in Prescott, you know, with the 9-foot tires where you run over each other's houses on the weekend, you know. Come on, get in, Billy Bob, we're going, you know, Jesus Christ, you know. Hee-haw! You know what I mean? Just, you know, nothing wrong with that, you know what I mean? You know. There's nothing wrong with that at all, you know. If it ever gets to I'll ride a truck, but, you know, what I did is I started dating this little Mexican girl named Lupe, and she had some brothers, and she used to curl her hair with these soup cans, and the noodles were stuck in there, you know. And I'd had my hair up real big and slicked back like a Bakersfield tumbleweed. I had my white T-shirts with my black khaki pants that came up to here, you know, and had my hair slicked back, and we'd drive around drinking that Thunderbird and that whiskey, listening to the four. And I had a '62 Chevy Impala. That wasn't a truck, it was just a Chevy Impala, dropped right down to the ground, man, you know. We'd drink that stuff and go bouncing around all night with our frowns on, you know, listening to the Four Tops and the Temptations and the OJs and Marvin Gaye and Junior Walker, and God, I loved it, man. Wasn't too long ago, I was in my plumbing truck and the old Four Tops came on, and shit, I just started singing in my damn truck. I loved it, you know. And her sisters were telling her that men who are well endowed had big feet, so I went out and got me a pair of 15-inch shoes that I was driving around with. Had my big hair and my big feet, you know, and oh, I loved it. One day we were drinking that 151 rum, which is the magic of the alcoholic, you know, Everclear. And we're drinking that 151 about 10 in the morning, and about 5 in the afternoon we're bouncing around. And she goes, Wedo. She goes, drive up to the Jack in the Box, let's talk to the puppet. You know, and we were a lonely couple, so, you know, and I wouldn't like, you know, finally I get to talk to somebody, you know, and so, you know, after you know, several, you know, after a couple bottles of that 151, once you roll up to the old Jack in the Box to talk to him, well, you see about 20 Jack in the Boxes there. You hope you're talking to the right one, you know. Can I have your order, please? Just an indignant little guy, you know what I mean? Can I have your order, please? You know what I mean? And I want to talk to the puppet, but I run him over. I ran him over in the car, and the puppet's head's hanging down, and that kid's still talking. Can I have your order, please, mister? You know, just rowdy little kid. And the cops come and they arrested me. They tricked me out of the car. There was no cameras. And they threw me on the hood of the car, shattered my hair all over the place, you know. Threw me in jail, and I don't drive till I'm 30. Well, big deal, you know. Let Rudy drive. And, man, there's nothing like riding shotgun. I tell you. To a slothful loser like me, man, riding shotgun was the best, man. Look over there, you know, look at yourself in that mirror. You say, my God, your hair's all flat because you've been sleeping on the window all day, you know, and you got 30 pounds of tamale puke on your chest, you know, and you feel like dancing, you know what I mean? I'm ready now, baby, you know. You like corn? you know. Only in AA can you make fun of barf, you know what I mean? And, yeah, man, and I loved it. I loved it, and one more time, man, I became somebody, you know what I mean? I was Lawrence of Torrance, for God's sakes, you know what I mean? Nobody else knew that, but I knew that, and it was just enough, you know what I mean? And I knew that me and Pooch were going to bounce off to the sunset, you know? We were going to ride forever, man, you know? The music was good, and everything we put into our system was good, and I loved it, you know? And around 1969, folks are going different places, and I thought, well, everybody seems to be moving around. I thought, well, maybe I'll grab my buddy here in Gardena, and we'll drive out to Detroit and find my roots. Everybody was talking about finding their roots, right? So I grabbed my buddy and head out to Detroit to find my roots. And I wound up in Phoenix. no roots there, you know what I mean? Just cactus is what it is, you know. There I was, you know, and on North Central and Roosevelt at the Apache Hotel, 5 floors high. Everybody has a bathroom, it's down the hall. Everybody has a TV, it's in the lobby. It was about $15 a night. I'm running out of dough. I'm afraid to leave my room in the daytime. I'm afraid to be by myself at nighttime. I don't know what to do with myself, so I find myself a hiding place called a Wagon Wheel Bar. Beautiful place, no windows, just a dirty curtain blowing through the doorway, you know. And I go in there and I meet a guy named Ernie. And every bar has an Ernie. Ernie's the answer man. He's the answer man. You need a dog, he's got the answer. You know, you need a gun, he's got the answer. You need a hand. You know, there's one in the trunk. You know, I mean, Ernie's got everything in his trunk. You know. And I get there and introduce myself to Ernie, and he says, why don't you come down here in the morning and I'll see if I can put you to work. Showed up that morning, man, and Ernie put me to work. He introduced me to some plumber. I never plumbed a thing in my life, man. You know, but the idea of being in your house, I like that idea, man. Call me a plumber, you know what I mean? You know, and I don't care if I'm under it. I don't care if I'm in the attic. I don't care if I love the medicine chest. You know, I just love your house, some of the things on the walls, you know. And so he took me out to, introduced me to this plumber, and the plumber took me out to Tempe, Arizona, and stuck me underneath a house. And he said, now look he gave me a transistor radio, and he said, all I want you to do, son, is hang this copper. That's all I want you to do, you know. And he says, I'll come back and get you in about 8 hours. And he took off, and I'm underneath this house, and I'm excited. You know, it's a new house. You never know what you're going to find. I got a transistor. I got a pint of PM bourbon, because there's nothing like starting that day off with a shot of bourbon to just drink away the fear. It just cleans the way for excellent things to happen to a guy like me. You know what I mean? It just makes ways for dreams. You know what I mean? And I'm underneath this house. I'm kind of excited, you know, so I start crawling around, and oh my God, what's that? And there's a stray cat, and oh God, I get giddy as a little girl. Oh my God, look at that. This is great, man. I've got a transistor, I got a pint, I got a pet, you know. Jesus Christ, my life's coming together now, you know. Normal living, you know what I mean? This is great. I get so excited. You got to have a drink. I crack open that hot bourbon, take out a shot of some, man, you know. Start hitting that bourbon, and sooner or later I got drunk, and I busted up through the lady's floor. I robbed her of her jewelry and her money. Pass out under there. My boss is dragging me out at the end of the day, you know. He's dragging me out. This little cat comes running out with a bunch of necklaces on, you know. And he just threw me in jail for 3 months in Arizona. Got out of there, went back to the old wagon wheel. Went back to the wagon wheel, and Ernie says, well, he says, shit. He said, I know what we're going to do. He said, not too far from here is a horse track. He says, we're going to get you down to 95 pounds. You're going to be a jockey. And I thought, you know what, that's great. You know, I can start working out, you know, and getting into shape and eating right and drinking water and stuff like that. Okay, Ernie, I'm all for it. He goes, well, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, but I'm going to give you this stuff, and I want you to take this. And in 2 months, I'm pretty sure you'll be down to 95 pounds, you know. And I'll come and get you, and we'll go weigh you in and get our colors. He says, so I'll be back in 2 months. And he leaves me in that little room with that little bag of stuff. Well, I don't know what it is. You know, I'm just used to drinking cheap whiskey and wine and doing heroin and just minding my own business. You know what I mean? You know, I didn't know it was that stuff that my mom and you guys used to eat, you know, and, you know, and, you know, I thought, what is this stuff? You know, I'm not going to be no Afghan maker, am I? You know, and he takes off, and he leaves me in that little room with that bag of speed, you know. And he didn't come back 2 months later. He came back 2 weeks later, right? Open up that door. You know, he opens it up, and I'm standing there. I haven't moved an inch. You know, I've been chasing a fly around my room, you know, and looking out that window every 10 seconds. Whoa, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? You know? Or I'm hiding underneath my bed just frightened to death, because of these black and white flashes that are just scaring the snot out of me. I go, oh, God, what is that? And it was the sun coming up and down. And, oh, my God, there it is again. He stood at that doorway. He says, you couldn't have possibly taken all the... Well, I did, Ernie. You can put a saddle on me and ride me around here, you know what I mean? Well, we went back to the old, back to the old bar, and he introduces me to another plumber, and I start working for this other goof for about, 2.5 hours. And I said, Jesus Christ, And, I don't know about, but, I ain't working for no kid. This cat was about 20, 20 at the top, something like that. And I'm not working for no kid. I've got my Detroit pride, So I did what any honorable man from Detroit would do. I faked a knee injury, right? They took me down to the old, Phoenix County Hospital, and this doctor writes me a prescription for Percodan, and then he leaves the office, and he leaves me a cardboard box full of blank prescription pads he wanted me to have, right? Well, shit, I took running down North Central with this box of Hot Topics, man, and went into the old wagon wheel, and I showed Ernie these things. He says, oh, my God, this is great. This is great. He got on the phone, called these cats down in Yuma, and, man, I tell you, we started drinking that cheap tequila and whiskey down there and writing prescriptions and selling them, writing prescriptions for everything, Seconal, Tuinal, Nembutal, you name it all. We wrote it all, man. And damn near took it all, too, And after about 9 months, they caught up with me, and when you're loaded on whiskey and barbiturates, there's no freeway chase on Channel 7, There he goes down the 17 loop. Look at him go, There ain't none of that stuff happening. I was going 9 miles an hour, right? And the cop was on foot. He was just, hey, come on, man, just open up the window. And I'm looking at that guy, and I'm going, my God, can that man run? Look at him go, man. Boy, he threw me out of that car. They threw me in jail for a little over a year, and I got out of there in 1973, and they sent me back to Los Angeles, where I belonged. And my probation officer puts me on antabuse. And for the first time in my life, I don't have a thing in my system. There's no AA, there's no counseling. He just puts me on this antabuse stuff. And for the first time in my life since I was 13, I don't have a thing in my system. And after about and I get this little hotel in downtown Torrance. I never want to forget this. I got this little, it was a hall about like this. And on each side of the hall were 5 rooms, a boarding house. And you had a little bed, and you had a window, and you had a sink, and a little drawer to put your stuff in. Here's where my goals were. Once a week, I'd look out my little window, and I'd look across the street, and I would see the Roy Tan Hotel. And in the window sign, the Roy Tan said, rooms with hot plate. And I go, one of these days. Right? One of these days, man, I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to have one of those. You watch it. And, man, on that antabuse after 2 months, my probation officer gets me a job interview. And I'm going to be a part-time janitor at a refinery in El Segundo, California. And I got to go for this interview. And like I told you, I'm not going to drive till I'm 2 years sober. So you take the bus everywhere. And you know how much fun that is. You're 3 hours early or 3 hours late. There's none of this, I'll be right there, you know what I mean? 3-4 hours early in this little Mayberry town of El Segundo. And I'm walking this little town and just feeling kind of odd. I'm 2 months without a thing in my system, but there's something going on with me. It's just, and I go to this little, I go to this park over there. And I'm sitting in this park and I start rocking. Because that's what I do. If I'm not tapping my legs and stuff, I rock. And I start thinking about my mom and my dad, and I start crying like a baby. Remember the old man and me playing baseball catch in the driveway? And then I start laughing like a clown. And this goes on and on and on for a couple hours. And then this paranoia that used to float through me when I'm DTing and stuff finally settles in. And the hallucinations settle in. And somebody sees me milling around there, and They called the paramedics. And I guess they thought I was somewhat catatonic, and they took me to the Harbor General Hospital in Torrance, California. I'm in the emergency ward on a gurney with my arm and my leg strapped down. I got to hurry up here, I guess, right? And the doctor comes in. He says, by the looks of your son, he says, we need to put you away in a state facility so you can be observed for 30 or 60 days so we can see what's going on with you. And so they put me in a van and sent me to this little facility, and after a year they let me out. And they gave me all the medication that a guy like me would need for what they thought was wrong with me. I had them convinced in myself that my past was my biggest problem. If I could just get rid of this past. Every time I stop drinking, this past I can't get through, and the memories, and if I could just get rid of it, I know if I could just settle with my past and get rid of it. And they did everything they could. And then I would sit with you folks. And I would sit in meetings like I had this morning with Oscar and the guys, and we read a vision for you. And you guys would say stuff and read stuff like, your past is your greatest asset. You won't want to regret your past. I said, who you kidding? Who you kidding? And in 1974, I came out of that place and I ran out of Thorazine. And I ran around the streets for a while in downtown Los Angeles and Long Beach. And in 1975, they found me in Skid Row, across the street of Alvaro Street in downtown Los Angeles. And in 1975, they found me over Alvaro Street, 120 pounds in yellow. And they got me for violation of probation, out-of-state forgeries, and sent me to 3.5 years in state penitentiary. After 30 days, they sent me up to a holding tank in Wayside, California, county jail, where you wait for your trial. And in 1975, they sent me to the courthouse, and there's 40 of us in this holding tank. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm the only one left. Everybody else has been called out, and I'm the only guy there. How much time do I have so I don't have to keep looking at you? Oh, okay. And in 1975, I'm in that holding tank, and I'm the only guy left. And I'm wondering where they're going to send me now. Okay, sorry. And in 1975, a Scottish man with a patch looked inside that jail. And he says, "Aye, lad." He says, "Are you Larry Thomas?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He says, "That's great." "Aye, that's great. Come with me, son." He says, "We're going to AA." And I thought, AA? What's AA? You know, I've heard of OR and PO, but what's AA? And who's the Scottish pirate all of a sudden, you know? I've been hallucinating so much I didn't know if he was real, you know. "Aye, lad," you know. And real quick, in 1975, he took me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was ready for a long ride up north and maybe some lunch, right? He took me for a 15-minute car ride to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he rolled up to this dingy, stinky, rotten, filthy, perverted Torrance Lomita Alano Club. It was an AA clubhouse, right? And I never heard that word before, Alano. What is it? You know, watch for crossing Alanos, you know. What the heck is it, you know? And he drove up, and there's all the Alanos, man. Everybody had a nickname and a tattoo. He starts introducing me to all these goofy people, Indian Genie and Captain Bob and Tennessee Bill and Singing Sam and Serenity Sam and Bicycle Ray and Santa Claus Ray, Dancing Pete, Whistling Butt, all these. I said, oh, my God, I just left a group of people like that. Little Moose was 120 pounds. She's running after me. "Hi, honey. My name is Moose, and I'm expecting a miracle." I said, "I bet you are. I'm not it," you know. And then this big transvestite starts circling me like a helicopter in Long Beach. He starts 3 times around. He comes to me, he says, with his new muumuu on. He goes, "Hi." He says, "I can't wait to take you to a candlelight meeting." I said, "I don't think so, big guy, you know. Not till I get my year, you know." And I told Alex, I said, "My God, that guy's got big feet, you know." From 1975 to 1982, I slid in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that don't make me a worse alkie or a better member. All it did was convince me that I was powerless. I didn't come back every time I called AA, somebody would come and get me, and they were always clean and they were sharp. And on May 2nd, 1982, I got kicked out of the Beacon Light Mission in Wilmington. And I didn't have no money, which was no surprise, but I made a call. And one more time, I called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got a hold of this guy that used to come and get me. He became my first sponsor. I said, Don, this is Larry. I'm ready to come back to AA. Will you come and get me? And he told me the most profound thing I've ever heard in my life. He says, no. He says, you know where we are. You know what we got. Why don't you get your rusty ass down here yourself? I'm tired of chasing after you. And he hung up. And I said, my God, whatever happened to that AA love? You know, I just heard it. And I didn't come here knowing about God or anything. But I came here because I listened to you guys, and I was able to find out what an alcoholic was. And I knew I was going to drink again, and everything in me didn't want to. And I knew I would. And I had to come back and be with you people. You became my power greater than myself. Once I started trusting you folks, I couldn't help but realize that I'd found a power greater than yourself. If you're new in Alcoholics Anonymous and you have trouble believing in a God, I understand that. I didn't come here and believe in. All I know is for me tonight, on a Saturday night in Prescott, I see row after row after row of people who should be dead, locked up, or insane. And look at us tonight. We're happy, we're joyous, and we're free. I'm plain in the evidence. Thanks a lot.
Let's thank our speaker once more.